label, you can't wait 5 years to make that money, because you need that money up front, and that's where we need to kind of look at how can that kind of be changed.
Historically, up front was advances from labels, so the label would write the artist a big check on the basis that the artist would then deliver 2, 3, maybe 6 albums to them over a period of time.
I mean, think of Mozart or Beethoven or whatever.
So there were advances, and one of the things that's happened with the deferment of payment, so it used to be the consumer would buy, one fan would buy 1 album, pay up front for a lifetime of listening on CD. Now they're going to stream that album for the next 50 years, so they're going to pay micro payments. So the money is pushed into the future. So as well as the independent artists who self-releasing not getting the money up front for that album, getting it spread over the next 30 years, the labels, because the way that their revenues are flowing, have raised the threshold at which they will invest in an artist. An artist has to get bigger. They have to develop their own fan base. They become a small to medium enterprise in their own right before the label will parachute in, at which point obviously there's less risk. If labels used to wander around Spot Festival and find an unsigned band and throw money at them and then develop them in the studio and give them cost of living, that was an upfront risk. Now labels are coming in later when the model has been proven, when the audience has been built, they have less risk. The royalty rates haven't changed, but we're talking here about advances, about funding. They're not writing the checks up front to the artist. So it's very difficult for new artists in this new model to see seed funding to get through the first couple of years and become viable.
But we also need to clarify that when we're talking about niche markets, we're not necessarily talking about thrash, death metal. I was in Columbia Records the other day, and the president of Columbia Records was there looking at the poster of Bob Dylan, going, look at the heritage where we're from. Bob Dylan's first album sold 4,000 copies and would in this day have been completely dropped and not kept Columbia. That was very much a niche. And David Bowie's first album sold nothing for the first 4 albums.
First, second,
I'm pretty sure with Bob Dylan, he was, the only reason he wasn't dropped was Johnny Cash liked him, and Johnny Cash shouted at the time, "You keep that guy."
Yeah, and so we need, in order to kind of propagate new music and the sort of universal communication value that music is, we need to look after those niches.
Let's go for this panel with the description of niche there for Crispin's point. That if we're all familiar with this term, the 1%, that there's a small percentage are attracting a lot of the revenue in various areas, including in the music business. So let's take niche as the 99%.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But also, I think that the thing is that something that is niche today, as you're referring to, is obviously might not be niche tomorrow. I think I was talking to Martin Mills about, I'm sure he's taken this quote somewhere else, but so I'm not going to attribute it specifically to him. But they want to sign artists. They want to sign artists that people don't know they like yet.
Right.
They don't want to sign artists that people want. They want to give them something that they don't know they want yet. And how acts like The Prodigy or Sex Pistols and whatever, you would never ever have thought they would sell as much as they did. But I think that I want to kind of also talk solutions here, because and I think, I mean, one of the solutions when we're talking about the niche thing is clearly, which I know has been discussed quite a lot within the industry, is you should be able, if I subscribe to, like you were referring, if I subscribe to Spotify or Tidal, my 10 quid should go to whatever I listen to, because this is the thing, it's like I don't, if I listen to Alt J all month, I want Alt J to get that money, and it's not impossible. I mean, I think this is one thing that has kind of, people are so resigned to the way that it is right now, but it does not have to be this way.
That's a description, a deconstruction of how revenue is distributed from the services, and some of the research that's looked at doing it that way suggests that it might not, actually might be counterintuitive how it results in how the money is distributed. That
How
it
do
might
you mean?
focus on, there's numbers out there, I'm going to throw to Rasmus. Do you want to?
Yeah, do you have a microphone?
Yeah, sure. He's done the research.
Oh, okay.
Rasmus from earlier today. I did a report last year, research on exactly how a user-centric distribution model would affect that. Some of the numbers I used earlier today are from that research. It has one specific thing that we should keep in mind. It's based on WIMP numbers in Denmark. But the effect here would be that because mainstream listeners, the numbers I showed a little bit earlier, because mainstream listeners tend to listen less, spend fewer hours listening to music than niche audiences in general, a user-centric model would in general, on average, move money towards the top because mainstream listeners listen less on average. So to me that was counterintuitive. But
WIMP doesn't have WIMP didn't have a freemium service, did it? Like an ad funded, like Spotify has, for example.
Definitely, this research definitely has its limitations, but the general tendency was that the more casual a listener you are, the more mainstream you also listen, and the less you listen. Which is also in accordance with the consumer research within a lot of other industries. You see, considering toothpaste or cookies, or you would get the same kind of pattern. So it's not that surprising if you look at it from just a market research perspective that was the finding. So I'm not saying that it doesn't have effect. I only looked what happens between the top and the bottom. Maybe there is a difference between what happens between older artists and younger artists, or between new releases and back catalog releases. But I didn't have the data to look into that.
That's a really good example of if we say there's the consumer and the creator, that money is coming from the consumer through the services, and we're discussing here how that money is split. Then it comes into the industry, and the earlier points were about what happens then. Royalty statements. Royalty statements are not generated by the ones that we were talking about, by the services. They're generated by collection societies, publishers and labels. And it's possible that because we're in this new era, we've got the streaming thing, that we have to completely look at how we divide all that side of it up, because it's very much based on old models, old systems, when consumption was entirely different.
Well, this is one of the things that we've discussed before, is what is a stream? We were at the masterclass, the songwriting masterclass, and you know, nobody made the decision. It wasn't a communal decision that a stream suddenly became equivalent to a sale. Because in our eyes, a stream is a broadcast.
I have a one possible solution that I've been thinking about is if you're quite right. Streaming has been appropriated by the industry as if it were a sale.
By the record labels.
By the record labels, and it pays accordingly. So songwriters are still getting the cut that they would have got on the CD. For starters, this is completely imbalanced because those contracts and those divisions shares are based upon a marketing and distribution model, and there is no or a manufacturing.
Can we throw out some floor to ceiling like mechanical
percentages? But I have that as looking into the future, as streaming is going to develop, I was wondering whether one solution that we could find for artists, songwriters, and for the music community in the whole, because we definitely do still need the investment from labels in order to keep up a healthy music label. It's not a paradox. But the industry will say, or the labels will say, well, we can't invest in you if we're only taking this small amount. But as music has certainly, when Beats comes out, all of the technology, Wired magazine types are saying that Beats will all be about curated playlists. It will all be about playlisting. This is the trouble with streaming, and the joy of streaming is that when you had your own record collection of, if you were a fan, 300 records, you had 300 records to choose from. Now you get the complete tyranny of choice. You have 30 million albums to choose from. So instead of actually choosing stuff, you tend to let the service choose records for you. And basically, looking at Norway, who is stopping FM radio, don't you think that we should make a clear delineation between the music that you choose? So if you go to Spotify and say, I want to listen to Alt J, that can be counted as a sale, because that is what a sale is. But if you go to Spotify and say, I'm feeling like a badass, so I'm going to play the Walking Like a Badass playlist today, that is radio and should have all of the same kind of rights for writers, for musicians, and it should be all that money should be distributed by collective management societies that should be properly regulated under proper new European rules, and that way it might just actually provide a solution, because for just to redefine, streaming is not, we don't know what it is, the concrete is not yet set, the whole industry is in a state of flux about how to do this, and there's an opportunity at the moment for us as writers, producers, musicians, artists to try and agree amongst ourselves a position whereby we can say, okay, if I'm honest, a stream is probably 30% the song and 20% the musician.